Hey everyone, RemanX here, and we're going to talk about Heroes for Hire in case you haven't heard enough about them. There are some emerging counters, and we're going to go through some warnings, some other attempts that we made, some successes, some losses, and we're going to talk about a change that I have made specifically in targeting priority and why. So let's get right to it, guys. So we're going to talk about what I think is probably the best non-Doom team to throw on Heroes for Hire. By the way, throwing Dr. Doom as the fifth character here can be absolutely devastating to your opponent. I do think splitting up Doom, especially with two of the higher level counters for Dr. Doom being pulled out to address this, they have actually filled their role at 100% changing the pace of war. So one thing that I want you guys to think about is the developers delivered again on a promise that war was going to change. This wasn't going to be an easy one shot. But we're going to talk a little bit about this team. So this is my defense really quickly here. This is how I have them positioned specifically. And the reason is the resists on here are important. Silver Surfer, probably still one of the best characters to attempt to beat this team with because of the fact that you can remove that charged. It is very important to understand that it can be resisted. Something that we weren't sure of, but then we went back to a strike time and we saw that Cerebro had specifically isolated and asked the question, can the charge removal be resisted? And he actually said it could be, and it was important with the Silver Surfer release, and now looking back, it is especially important now. So giving them that extra chance to resist that is a big deal. Now remember, Misty probably isn't your best first attack. The reason being is she can dodge. So if you're using Surfer against this team and she dodges his ultimate, which would remove the charge on a single target. Remember, it's only a single target if you're expecting her to remove from the whole team. It does not. Then that's an issue where she could dodge that, and then 20% of the time you're left just wondering what to do next. And it is on such a long cooldown that the potential is that you're probably gonna have some trouble with it. So Colleen does the most damage. The one thing about it is you have to be very careful in your selection, whatever team you're using, making sure you don't get stuck behind Luke Cage's taunt. And even if you get Colleen Wing down, there's always a chance you're going to time out. They do drag the time for quite some bit, and Colleen Wing is all of their damage. So if you can get her out of the way quickly, that's good. Now here's the warning. Right now you're seeing a difference in power because we did not have her blitz yet. Colleen Wing may seem like an obvious target early on. It may change up because we'll see people building into these teams over the next few weeks. I fully expect that some of these developed counters we've already shared, and I have tested them, and they don't always work at higher levels. Once the team gets above 500k with 120k Colleen Wings, even at 5 red, 4 red star, she was giving my opponents fits. So just to be aware, there is something to be considered for that. You can take out Travelzs' video with the Hydra counter in there. I'm going to have him walk you through his reasoning. It is the original video where you can see all that, and we're going to have that video if you guys want to check out some footage of that team. Very, very well done. I would say around the 300 to 400k works pretty reliably. I had some trouble, but again, it was mostly because of target priority and some issues. Remember, you got to be careful with summons against that team because Misty Knight just wrecks summons in that category. Now we're going to talk about the Heroes for Hire, and I think it's important to understand how the kits work. And I think a lot of people are still struggling to understand what about them makes them so dangerous. And we're going to talk about their mechanics. So they all have this charge mechanic. All right, you get them below 50%. As long as they're charged, they're going to lose the charge. All right, clear all negative effects, heal up for 100% of the health, gain offense up, deflect, and death proof. Now, if they die, they revive on death, gain 10% damage, 10% damage reduction, and 170% resistance per charged. Now remember, that's a big deal. Okay? So, if charged, always revive on death. That's why it's important to understand that that's why we're talking about being able to remove the permanent death characteristics of both Black Bolt and Kestrel, why they're on that team. So I will tell you that sometimes blowing up the enemy team isn't always great because they're going to revive and become hardier, healthier, and more powerful. And so we're in this weird zone where even under-leveled teams are performing really, really well. They did a great job with the way that they made this team work in a 4-piece synergy. I've been very impressed with the design team's work, with the exception of some bugs that worked at, where Misty's ability block and wasn't working outside, her ult wasn't working correctly outside of war. They've been pretty spot on with power levels, making sure that they felt important. This team feels important. I know it's a war defense team, but I'm telling you right now, they're absolutely winning wars. So the question here is Misty Knight or Colleen first. And Colleen will do all that damage if you do not control her. She is going to just wreak havoc. And once she gets those bleeds on a target, and that's the thing, is once we start seeing Colleen Wings that are 6 red, 7-star G15, and even after that first attack, where a lot of the teams we have are going after that attack, she could be killing your Kestrels. We just don't see that happening right now because just the team hasn't had that level of investment. So we're hoping that we, in this week, get the number 1 or number 2 alliance in the time zone, so we can take a look and decide, what really works against these teams, especially when they're boosted. I saw some teams where X Factor were working. I tried them. Mine were punching down. It worked. I get nervous when they have things like defense up on spawn, or more specifically, if the power level has to be very specific there. There's definitely some warnings in that what works now won't work while these characters get invested. And a lot of people already had the passives because defenders were relevant in year 1. So this is kind of we've gone full circle. Defenders are now split up, but they actually have some significant power on their respective teams, and they've all kind of met expectations while they're off doing their own things for now. So Misty Knight, okay? It's very, very important. You need to understand their targeting mechanic. There's 2 things about their targeting mechanic that I think most people do not understand. Okay? You need to know before you try any counter who your highest damage is and who your highest health is. Basically, you're going to have to understand that this team was designed specifically so that Black Order couldn't walk into them and one-shot them. So largely, most people have put so much effort in either their Coal Obsidian or their Thanos, but specifically their Thanos, that Misty Knight and Colleen Wing were erasing him before he got his second turn. And so if you don't know who that is on your team, you will likely lose. If you've built up Kestrel where she's bigger than your Black Bolt, and you have a big enough Colleen Wing to take out Kestrel, the counters that we've shared with you won't work. So even the best counter that I've shared, which includes the 3 Inhumans, Kestrel, and Silver Surfer, will not work unless the power levels on the team make sense. Your Crystal needs to be bigger than she probably is. If you start seeing, so you want to compare your Crystal versus the power and size of their Colleen Wing. And the main reason is she needs to be able to heal up the damage from those bleeds. Her passive, the Second Wind, is the reason why this team was even hypothesized early by somebody you guys know as the counter for this team, because of those early damage buffs. I do believe that the majority of folks probably have a larger Black Bolt. He was the other character that was heavily invested before the Black Order really came into where they sat on the throne. So that is probably something that I think you guys may want to consider, is the fact that, here I am with a 7 red star, and you almost saw my Black Bolt get deleted by a powerful enough Colleen Wing. So be very careful about the advice you're getting about counters. Plenty of teams work. Not everyone's going to work the same way. My Axemen is not the same as your Axemen. My 7 red star Bishop is going to take a beating and keep on dishing it back out. If you didn't get lucky or you haven't built that character up because he's not available and your beast is, your Axeman won't do it. You won't cut it. So be very, very aware of how that works. So we're going to go back through Heroes for Hire. We're going to break it down one more time on their targeting options and what I think is important about how to make it work. So we're going to start with the ult from Misty Knight, because that's the big burst in the beginning that really causes headaches for people, okay? This attack targets the enemy with the highest health, which is clear all positive effects and then attack for 380% damage, apply ability block, and disrupted. That's huge. That means that you're not going to be able to flip if you're Thanos. You're not going to taunt if you're certain characters. More importantly, if you're Kestrel, your ability block won't affect you very much, but you're going to lose offense up and a lot of your early potency. Something to be aware of. Again, extra focus for this attack is huge, and that's the big deal here. Remember, and it's unblockable, so that the hanger makes no difference for you. The next thing I want to talk about is the other reason why I think she's dangerous and why JJ is probably the best fifth character. Well, if you can keep making sure that she's alternating between those two abilities by feeding her energy, she is a force to be reckoned with. That stun and then applying the ability block to the adjacent target is stupid powerful. You're basically taking away the power of two characters every third turn. Feeding her energy means every turn, every other turn, and then you potentially have Luke Cage getting his taunt. So she is no slouch in her own right. We just don't see her built up that much at all. So be very aware that she is powerful. And then get a couple of bad dodges on her. These are going to cause timeouts as you build them up. Now remember, this also targets the highest damage. And this is the one we're talking about, how she just erases summons. So once she's big enough, summons will be erased, which is why, things like Phoenix are just not working. You probably saw that people had struggled with that as well. Next thing is we're going to talk about Colleen Wing. So Colleen Wing's first action is important. You need to understand that that's going to be a heal block. Her ultimate is a ton of damage, and because of the speed fill, it's very, very powerful. Now remember, any target is a protector. So Thanos, Cole, Red Guardian, other characters that you've been hypothesizing as counters, if any target is protector, they get hit harder and get 3 bleeds. Now we all know that bleed is magnified by T4s, which is why I put the T4 in all these abilities. These bleeds are no joke. They're hitting for a ton. So remember, this is going to be something that's important. Now the fearsome strikes, all right, is going to target the enemy with the highest damage as well. Now remember, all these ignore the targeting mechanics, so it's going to target behind taunt, which probably won't be an issue because you're not going to be using a protector, but we do know that some other protectors don't taunt. It is very, very powerful. It'll erase characters. You guys have seen this. If you let her get to her special, most characters aren't going to survive that. This is why the power of Colleen Wing starts to matter. All right, she is no joke. Same thing you're going to see with Iron Fist. So these targets are targeting your highest damage and your highest health. When you guys are theory crafting and building your counters for these teams, you need to know who on your team has that. And if you guys aren't aware of that, that will change over time potentially with war buffs. If you have a military target, they're getting bonuses because of your armory. You have to understand mechanics such as, can you change a character to striker and drop it down? But I love stuff like this. This theory crafting, where we live right now in this, is absolutely the best of all time. I think it's a good thing for the game. I know it's frustrating, and I know it's hard to justify working on them, but I'm doing it so you guys don't have to. I got 12 defensive wins with JJ last war. Check you soon.